This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Graham. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle sitting in with you as always, and we couldn't be any prouder and fortunate right now to be joined by one of the all-time greats from Indiana, Greg Graham. Greg, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Man, it's been a long time. You've kind of escaped the limelight a little bit here in the last few years. Catch us up on what's going on in the life of Greg Graham.
Well, for the past almost 4 years now, I've been living in Rhode Island, which is quite a distance away from Indiana. I'm still coaching basketball out here, but it's not basketball country, and but I make the most of it.
Yeah, certainly you get your plentiful amounts of clam chowder, I'm sure, up there. It's a great, beautiful area up there.
It's a beautiful area, great seafood, great beaches, everything that you want in Indiana. But, again, it's not basketball country.
Yeah, how is it difficult to keep up with? I know it's not like they don't have electric or TV up there, but are you able to follow Indiana or the college game like you were with the schedule you keep?
I am able to watch some games when they're on national television. But outside of that, this is hockey country, and but I do get the Big Ten Network. So if they are playing on the Big Ten Network, ESPN, or one of the major networks, if time permits, I do get a chance to watch them.
With the NBA draft coming up, you look back, you were drafted in the first round. Went to the Charlotte Hornets back then. He played 5 years in the NBA. And right now the NBA playoffs are going on. Eric Gordon, a former Hoosier, also playing right now with the Rockets. But the NBA game today, it's a huge difference between the NBA game of that era you played in.
Yeah, the area I played in, it was more physical play, a lot of hand checking. Defense was, needless to say, it was hard for guards to really navigate through that. Whereas now it's catered exactly for that, and then up, and with improved scoring, the NBA has happy about that.
Oh, absolutely. But as a fan, when you look at today's game, and I know for me, that era that you were in and back, and even before that, with Bird, Magic, and all those guys, much more fun for me to watch. But as a fan from your aspect, how do you look at today's game versus the game that you played in?
Well, I mean, it's a lot different now. I mean, as everybody knows, I mean, now you have these free agents demanding trades, migrating to other teams with other superstars, forming super teams. And back then they didn't do that. They pretty much hung around where they were. And try to build that team from within, or try to carry that team through the playoffs and hopefully get a championship. But, as well as everybody knows, basketball is an evolving sport, and, you have to move with the times, and then whatever, that trend is going right now, that's the trend they tend to follow.
And now we look at the college game, things like recruiting. Man, that's changed so much as well with the advent of social media. But can you imagine having been in the era today with all the social media and all the hype and all the attention that are paid to these guys, when yet the recruiting class you came in is probably one of the greatest in college basketball history in my mind. But there was no hype, there were no videos and any of that stuff.
Yeah, and that was, I don't know I want to say it's fortunate or unfortunate, because I think now players are smart about their brand now, and they know how to market and advertise themselves. I mean, with the new age of social media, it's easier to be seen by a lot of coaches, and every game is filmed and put on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever else book is out there. But it's great for them as players now to get that national exposure, or even to get noticed, because everyone's doing it. Back then recruiting was, coaches always seemed to want to go after the top players in the country. Well, nowadays, you can find that diamond in the rough a lot easier now. You don't have to work as hard. You still have to work at your craft, but it's easier for players to be seen and noticed, and for the word to get out that how good these players are, how good or potentially they could be.
Talking with one of the IU's greats, Greg Graham's with us now. Warren Central High School. Warren Central, they had a great team here the last couple of years as well. They were back up.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, with me leaving there and then having Chris come in, I remember having a conversation with him. It was something that he really wanted to do. I felt like I had to know what all to go to our AD and principal and get him in there. And he really, really turned the program around. And for a couple of years there, it was known as a basketball school. Now it's back to football.
Well, they owe you a debt of gratitude for many things, but also for making them what they are today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and one of the conversations that, I had with Chris was, being that I played there and coached there, it was often difficult to get the basketball going and get it noticed. I mean, we had the talent, we had the players, but it took an overall commitment from everyone, from administration to the coaching staffs of all sports, and primarily the football, because with Jason being the football coach there, it really opened it up to let some of the football players really contribute and have a focus and spend some time on the basketball side, so they can grow and develop and become the good players and the good team that we always thought they could be.
And getting back to the college aspect, you look at there were years where there were teams that just dominated for a couple of years. They would have their great runs, and that's kind of going away with the one and dones and all that stuff. Now we look back at Indiana during like 91 through 93. You guys had 87 wins. That's the most in the history of the Big Ten. And the mind-boggling thing is the team that you guys replaced was the Indiana team from 74 through 76. Probably two of the greatest teams in the history of college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate to have a good run there, a good 3-year run there. And again, you talking about there was no one and dones back then. I mean, could Calvert have left early? Sure, he could. But back then with Coach Knight, it was more of a four-year commitment. And if you commit those 4 years and you have a class that comes in, year after year, you get an opportunity to build something. And fortunately for us, we had a couple guys from our recruiting class that hung in there and stuck around, and we were able to win some games and have some success. And I always tell people again, I tell the old story where Allen Henderson knee injury away from, possibly a national championship.
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
one of the better teams that didn't win a national championship.
I say it all the time, Greg. I think that you guys were absolutely one of the best teams that didn't win. Some unfortunate circumstances there. Trust me, it's something that I talk about a lot, because that team was not just a great team, but that recruiting class that came in together in '89 with yourself and Pat Graham and Calvert Chaney and many other, or Funderburk and others. I'm probably Todd Leary, of course. What an incredible class to come in together.
Yeah, that's pretty much unheard of. Well, you see the powerhouse now, like the national soldier of Coach Krzyzewski at Duke. He's doing something similar. That, I mean, we weren't highly touted as some of the recruits that he has coming in next year or that he did last year. But again, you're talking about a good group of guys that came in and made a commitment to stay there and continue to grow and develop and get better each and every year. And we were peaked and primed to win a national championship. Now, I'm not, going to, cry over spilled milk or anything like that. But man, you thought about what we could have done had we had our full deck of cards with us, and and healthy and being able to produce on the floor and compete at a high level. Who knows what could have happened?
Oh, absolutely. And I talk about that class because the bulk and the majority of that class was from within the state of Indiana. You guys were all Indiana high school kids for the most part.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that when we talk about Indiana basketball now, who I have conversations with, is one of the things that's so disappointing is that, back then, when you grew up in Indiana and you went to high school there, your thought was, you're going one or two places. You're going to Indiana or you're going to the other school. And you, you just don't see that anymore. And it's hard to understand, and it's hard to identify the disconnect that the university is having now, and then recruiting some of the top players in the state and getting them to stay home. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not. I haven't been around to try to figure it out. Nor do I care. But I think primarily Indiana can't get back to that elite level if you just continue to try to recruit the state as hard as you can and bring in some of the best players.
Yeah, absolutely. Archie Miller in his will be going into his third season next year, but that's what his recruiting focus is, the inside out. And here last year he got Romeo Langford in, and this year Trace Jackson Davis, Mr. Basketball, as well as a kid named Armand Franklin. Inside out is definitely something that Archie Miller is working on, and a lot of the fans, that's something they want to see. They want to see the kids from Indiana playing with that Indiana jersey on.
I mean, and why not? I mean, they've watched these kids grow up since junior high and high school. Why not to continue to try to watch them at their favorite university? Everybody wants that. I mean, everybody in the state wants it. The fan base wants it, and I'm sure Coach Miller and his staff wants it. The former players, they definitely want it. I mean, we want to see players that we recognize. Now, we're not saying we're going to outcast the players that don't come from the state of Indiana, but to have that good homegrown field and guys that grew up in Indiana and they actually know what the tradition means to the university, what it means to the fan base, what it means to former players and current players. I think when you go into it with that approach, I think good things will happen because no matter what kind of team that you're going to assemble at Indiana University, the fans are always going to be behind.
Yeah, I've long said that if you could get the core, the best players out of the state of Indiana and just sprinkle in what you need around it, I think you can compete for a national championship each year. I mean, look back at your team again. The guys that weren't from Indiana, like Eric Anderson and Jamal Meeks and Chris Reynolds, they were from right around outside of Indiana.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the bordering. They came from Illinois, it's a bordering state. So it's not too far from Indiana, where they're able to play for a prominent university and a great coach, and also have their family still come down in a short distance away, come see them play every weekend. I mean, that's what it's really all about. It's having your family there to get that support. I mean, you're at a place where you're not too far from home, so you're comfortable. And I think that's what most players are. They want that to be comfortable where they're playing. They want the family support to be able to come and see them play, and they want to play at a school that is on the rise or on the national level, and they're on TV all the time. I mean, that's what they want.
Lou Henson certainly seemed to appreciate it back in those days, the former Illinois coach.
We all know what happened with Eric Gordon in that situation.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of Eric Gordon, they're having a good run. He's playing for the Houston Rockets as they're trying to lock down a playoff berth into the conference finals. They lost last night, but he's having a great playoff run. I'm not sure if you're getting to follow the NBA playoffs at all.
I always watch them play, and I always like watching Eric play. I had a great connection with Eric. I brought him into when I was at the NCAA. I brought him and Greg Oden and Mike Conley. I brought them into that program that we were running at the NCAA. So to see him grow and develop from that dominant high school player that he was into his year at Indiana and then going into the pros. I mean, he had a brief moment there where he had the knee injury, but he seems like he bounced back pretty good.
Yeah, he's doing all right. And, you talk about that of being involved with those kids and having that pride. And Mr. Gordon, Eric Gordon Sr. was just on with us not too long ago. And we talked about the EG Academy, basketball academy that they have, that they're kind of doing the same thing that you did for them. And it's just like a carryover.
Well, obviously, because it was a great program. It was a national program. And what he's doing now is he's taking those players that, around the state who want to develop and wanted to improve on their craft. And, every kid's dream is to go to college and get a scholarship to go to college to play basketball. That's what they really want. And what better place to do that? What better backing and support than to have it from a guy who's done it and is still doing it in the league himself? So it was a great thing that they're doing, and just fortunate that you have a small part in that. It's also humbling.
Now, I got a text into the show. It says for Greg, would you come back to Indiana as an assistant if asked? I know that you probably were taken away to Rhode Island for work reasons, where the family reasons, whatnot. But would you come to Indiana if an assistant's position opened up and you were asked?
Absolutely. My whole thing is, I never wanted to leave the state of Indiana. Actually, I'm quite homesick out here. Like I said, you appreciate Indiana more the longer that you're away. In my playing days when I traveled and played a lot, the summers I always came back to Indiana. That's my home, and will always be that. So if an opportunity came about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with basketball, it's just any job situation right now, I would be on the first thing smoking back to Indiana because I truly miss it. I miss, family and friends, but I miss the fan base and people who know you and can connect with you because they watched you play throughout your career and they know a little bit about you because you're always around and I never had a problem talking to anyone, especially when it comes to basketball and in Indiana basketball for that matter. So yeah, if the opportunity came about, yes, I most definitely would be definitely interested and wouldn't say no.
Thanks to Bill for that text. Well, they definitely could use that because that's the one thing I've noticed on Archie Miller's staff. There doesn't really seem to be any Indiana connection. Derek Elston's a part of that staff, so that's not completely true. But his core is assistant coaches, Bruiser Flint and Tom Schilling, and which he actually coached in Indiana, so that's not completely true either. But I'm talking about from the IU past. There's no really IU connection on that immediate staff.
Well, I addressed that before. You look at the other school and what Coach Painter's doing, and you look at his staff, and most of those guys on his staff played there. And that's where I think the disconnect is because, when Coach Katie, retired, he was able to bring in one of his own. And I really feel like if Coach Knight was still there or had not been let go, that probably could have happened at Indiana, but because it didn't, it divided the state actually, and it divided the past and the present. And there's a extreme amount of disconnect there. There's a lot of former players that still go down to games and they still support, but you can just tell it's just not the right feel because that's something that should have been passed down. Coach should have been there to elect or point out his predecessor, anywhere along the line, just like Coach K is going to do, just like Coach Williams is going to do, probably Bill Self's going to do the same thing in Kansas. So you have coaches in place that for a long period of time, and not to say you won't give them all that power, but that's how you keep tradition alive. That's how you keep fans interactive with the program and support the program. And this is not a knock on Coach Miller, Coach Crean, Mike Davis, no, if any of them, Coach Sampson. But would those guys have that job had Coach been there and was able to, coach out the rest of his career? I don't know. We'll never know that. But
Certainly
that's where the
not.
disconnect is.
The fans certainly just like they like to see the kids from Indiana play wearing that Indiana jersey. It's always great because there's so many great coaches that are from that tree. Yourself, you've got Dane Fife who's up at Michigan State, Michael Lewis who was recently just at Nebraska. Just tons of guys who are out there coaching. AJ Moye who's been back recently. He's involved in coaching. You could go on and on. There's so many out there, and I just think it would be a great fit. I know they have Ed Schilling, like I said, but he was not a part of the IU culture. More, he's involved with the Indiana basketball side of things, but as far as the state goes. But it would sure seem to be a natural fit to have that IU guy on the staff.
It would, but and this is me frankly speaking, and this is just my opinion. I don't know how anybody else would use it, but I really felt like whether it was administration or the current coach that's there now, there might be a little intimidation factor there. When things are tough or rough or whatever, they don't want to have to look over. It's all about looking over your shoulder. They don't want to have that part of their that part of their career, their job, where they're worrying about a guy that, played there and had some success, and now it's on staff, and they're looking over their shoulders because, they think he's getting backstabbed or talked about or what have you. So it's a little bit of an intimidation factor. I don't know why coaches would want to come in and have somebody on staff or be around the program to help them with the recruiting or help them with this. I mean, nobody knows the coaches in Indiana better than I do. I mean, I coached there 8 years of high school basketball. I mean, I've built a great reputation with some of the coaches around the state. And I'm sure there's a lot of other players that are involved in coaching right now that will say and have done the same thing. Would they come back to Indiana? I'm sure they would. If you ask anybody that question, I'm sure they would want to come back and play a part or do something to help the university out.
Are you surprised that hasn't happened?
I'm shocked. And like I said, it's been more than one coach. So you just can't put the blame on just one coach. I mean, it's been several coaches that had that seat since Coach Knight left. And I think the closest that came to it was Tom Crean when he had Calvert back. But did Calvert have a really prominent role with the staff? I mean, that I beg to differ. Chris Reynolds was in the athletic department. He left.
Yeah, he's now the athletic director at Bradley.
Yeah, and doing great things.
Absolutely.
He's also on the selection committee.
Great points, man. Great points. I cannot thank you enough for coming on, Greg. I got to give a shout-out to your brother, Keith, for helping us with that. But, man, we'd love to have you back in the state. I'm sure that the fans would love to have you back inside of Assembly Hall. There's no doubt about that.
And as much as I want to be back in Indiana, I would love to have an opportunity to come down to Bloomington and see all the wonderful things that have happened since I last been there. Like I said, it was the best time of my life. Not only with my teammates, but just going to school at a university such as Indiana. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, one of the best years of my life, and I'll never regret it.
Greg Graham, one of the greats from IU past. Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Look forward to hopefully doing this again in the near future.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for having me. I really appreciate it, and great show.
Hey, thanks for listening to the rebroadcast from today's edition of Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, the only daily show dedicated to Indiana University athletics. You can catch us live each weekday on IndianaSportsBeat.com, TheDailyHoosier.com, GruelingTruth.com, or go to Spreaker.com for live notifications. Yeah, that's Speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. You can also catch the entire show any place you listen to a podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc. You can find and follow the show on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.